네, 안녕하십니까.
Good
애프터타임의
afternoon. I
대표
am Lee
공유하고자
Dae-hee,
합니다.
CEO of AFTERTIME.
일단 많은 분들이 게임을 개발하고
As you
게임
are
관련해서
game developers and you know various environments related to game
저희 오피스
development, and I
개발하는데
would like to talk
관련들이
about
상당히 많은
office
이슈가
that's
있을 거라 생각해서
used
갖고
for
있는
game development
주제입니다.
because you may have a lot of issues
일단
related to this, so that's why I
컨텐츠
picked this
자체는 일단
subject.
제일
So
게임
this
사업을 하고
is
있는
the
분이 계실
table of
거고
contents.
그다음에 이제
There may
2명
be
모이게
some
되는
one
팀,
person
그리고 이제 팀에서
enterprise
팀, 그리고
and
팀에서
teams with
합치는
2 to
이제
5
팀들이
members
각각
and
있을
5
거라
to 10
생각되고
members and
그
10
중에
to
이제
30
이외에도 공유
enterprise.
오피스라는 공간을
And there's a
소개하면서 진행을
shared office,
하겠습니다.
so I'll introduce all types of
일단 저
these
같은
offices and
경우는
end this
다양한 게임들을
presentation.
개발을 해왔고
I am a
내년까지
developer
제품을
myself and develop
출시하면서
various games, and every year I
이쪽
launch
일을
new
하고
game,
있고요.
and for the past 6 years I have been
제가
working
이걸
in this
만들게 된
field.
이유는 이제
The
많은
reason
분들하고
why
같이
I
저희
prepared
회사하고
this
협력해가지고
presentation
있었고요.
is
저희 회사
because
역시도 이제
our
셋팅비용은 한국에서
company
하고 자체 게임도
do
개발하는 그런 업체다
sourcing
보니까
and we
이제
develop our
거기에서
own
이제 어떤
games,
부분이
and
어떤 오피스를
we
사용하면 좋을까에
realized
대해서
that
질문이 가끔
office
받을 때가
space is
있었어요.
very
그러다
important,
보니까
and we got a
이제
lot of
1인
questions
기업으로
on how we
시작해서
prepared our
저희가
office.
5인 기업까지
So
성장하면서 진행했던
I
경험을
wanted to
한번
share my
공유했다면
experience
그게
of
좀 토대로 많은 분들한테 도움이 되지 않을까라는 생각을 하게 되었고요.
choosing the office
또
for my
다양한
company,
공간
starting
사이즈를
from one
활용하는
person enterprise
경우가
up until
있기
50
때문에
employee companies.
그거를
So
이제
we have
조금
various space options.
전반적인
So
부분들을 좀 정보를
in
공유한다면은 좀
I wanted
저렴하게
to
사용할
share
수
some
있고
information
제도를 사용할
about
수 있고
the
편하게
office so that you
사용할 수
can
있는
use
공간들이
these
있기
offices
때문에
in
그 부분들을
relatively
지원받으면서
low
그
cost. And
환경에서
there are
게임을
some
개발하게
free
된다면은
space that you
좀
can
더
use. So if
좋은
you can
게임들이
utilize
나올 수 있지
these kinds of
않을까라는
offices and
저희가
spaces,
생각하시면서 이제
I
정보를
expect that
조금
you will be
공유해
able to
주시면
develop a
감사하게
better
되겠습니다.
game in a very better environment.
일단 뭐 나는 이제 혼자이신
If you
분들이
are a
1인
one-person
기업을 하시는 이제
company,
처음으로 이제 창업을 하거나 또는
if
혼자서
you
게임을
newly
만든다든지
create your
하는 경우가
company
굉장히
or
많은데요.
develop a game on your
저
own,
역시도 혼자서 게임을 만드는
I had
입장에서
this
처음에
experience. I
시작했었고
started
대부분
making
집에서
game on
진행하고
my
있고
own,
당시에는
and
이제
I developed
대학원생이다
it
보니까
at
이제
home. I was
기숙사에서
a
게임을
college
개발하기도
student, so
했었고
at the
이제 혼자서
dormitory
만드는 생각을 했기
I
때문에
made this game.
하시게 됩니다. 그래서 집이 가장 편하게 되고 많은 분들이
My
집에서
home
이제
was the
게임을
most
개발하시는
comfortable
것을 알게
place to make a
됐는데
game,
일단 필요한 거는 이제
and
PC와
back then I
이제
needed
노트북 그렇게
PC,
가지고 있고
laptop,
옆에 이제 침대와 의자,
bed,
안마 의자 이런 것들도
massage
필요하고
chair,
또 화장실이라든지
and
뭐 주방
toilet,
이것만 있으면은
kitchen
혼자서 만드는
were
게임
all that I
시스템이다
needed.
보니까 쉽게 집에서 가장 편안하게
So
게임을
I
개발할
could
수 있는
make games
세팅을
at
하시게
home.
됩니다. 그리고 이제 혼자다 보니까 가장 좋은
As
점은
I
각종 행사에
am
참여하는 게
I
자유롭다는
was
것이
alone developing a
되겠고요.
game.
저
I could
역시나
freely use my
제가
time
만들었던 환경
participating in
세팅을
different
뭐
conferences and so
셀프 게임을
on.
만들다 보니까 컨서트가 관련된 강연을 한다든지
I gave lecture
행사가
related
페스티벌
to
심리에서
game
혼자서
making and
참여를 한다든지
participated in
그런
many
경우가
game
많았습니다.
festivals.
그리고 혼자 있다 보니까 누구를
As
책임진다든지 이런 게 없다 보니까
I
여행을
developed game on
쉽게
my
떠날 수
own, I
있고
didn't have to be
여행
responsible
가면
for other
게임 개발한다든지
employees, so I could
혼자서
freely use my
아이디어
time, do
짜낸다든지 이런
whatever I
것들이
want,
해보면
and
좀 더
make
되게 편안하게 게임을
ideas
만들 수 있는
and
그런
realize
방법이
my
있긴
ideas
하지만
relatively
또 한편으로는
freely.
문제가 생기는 것이
But on the other
계획을
hand,
좀
I
위험적으로
became
리스크가
lazy. That
발생하기도
was the
합니다.
risk.
그러다 보니까 혼자서 이제 게임을 만들다 보면
Doing
이게
it alone,
너무
making a game,
게을러지기도 하고
I
지연되기도
became
하고 또 다른
lazy
이유 때문에
and
미뤄지기도
everything
하고
got
그 게임들을
postponed.
계속 혼자서 개발하다 보니까 데드라인을 잡지
And there
않고
was
좀
no
편안하게
deadline
나는
because
뭐
I was
다른
in charge
게임들
of it.
플레이하다 보니까
And I
게임
played
개발
games
이루어지기도
a lot.
하고 그러니까 좀 당시에 좀 많은 생각을 가지게 되었는데요.
I
차라리 많은
had to
분들이
come
있는
up
데서
with other
게임을
ideas.
개발한다면 어떤가라는 그런
I
고민을
started to
하시면서
think that
들어갔던
having
공간이
more
이제
members in developing a game
처음에
can be a good idea, and
당시
I
구글
wanted to have some
캠퍼스가
colleagues, so
서울에
that's
이제
why
상용화되어
I
생긴다는
considered
뉴스를
going to
듣고
Google
이제
campus.
한번 방문하게
So at the
되었는데
time, Google established
이거외에도
Campus
이제
Seoul,
정부 기관에서도 또는 저도
and
학교를 다니고 있다
I
보니까
searched
학교에서도 이제
other
창업센터라고
options such
이제 있고
as
그 창업센터에서도
startup
이제
center
뭐
in the
회의소라든가
universities,
한
and
20명
there
이상
were
되면은
some
되는
office
분들이 그리고
space given
한편으로는
by the university
그냥
for the
편의점에
startups,
가서
and
커피숍 같은 데서
other
그냥
option
개발하면은
included study
좋지
cafe and
않을까라는
coffee
생각을
shop.
하면서 이제 이 세 개를 나누게
So
되었고요.
I
그 중에
summarized
이제
into three on the
개인으로 지원되는
slide.
무료 공간들이
First
많았던
is
거 그리고
enterprise
이제
given
정부
free
기관이라든지
space, and
학교에서는
second
이제
government
지원 대상자
supported
되거나
space, or
무료로 받을 수
university
있다는
supported
것을
space. You
알게
can use
되었습니다.
this kind of offices
하지만
free
이제
of
스타디 카페라든지
charge.
커피숍 같은
If you use study cafe or coffee shop, you need to pay the price of your coffee or
이제 내야 된다는 이슈가 있기 때문에
pay the price of the
유료로
space.
운영되는 부분도
So
존재했었습니다.
that requires some money.
저는 제일 좋았던 게 구글 스타트업 캠퍼스를
I really like
사용했는데
using Google Startup
코로나
Campus.
터지기 전만 해도
Before the
활성화되어
pandemic,
있었고 코로나
Startup
이후로는 이제
Campus
최근에
was very
다시
popular.
재개방을 하면서 이제
But
오픈되었다고
after
합니다.
2 years, I read a news that Google Startup Campus resumed their service. What I liked about here is that I can bring my own campus laptop and use the space, and they gave me freebies or gifts and use the desk and the space. And I can do content creation, and I could meet with a lot of people there. I could feel the vibes of the startups, and I could see a lot of people developing other games as well. So it was very inspiring. I felt like I'm part of that community, so I liked it. But at the same time, I could learn a lot of information through them. And I found out that there's other option. There's another programs given by enterprises, institutions, and so on. If you persuade those institutions with your idea, then you can apply for their support program. You need to make a speech, and if you are selected, then you can get a fixed seats in their space. In case of Google Campus, it's a free seat, so you can choose whatever seats you want. So it's different from Google Campus because you need to be selected and you get assigned for the fixed seats. To use Google Campus, you cannot register your business. But after you publish your game and become an enterprise, then you cannot use the Google Startup Campus anymore. So after publishing my game, I registered my business, so I couldn't use Google Campus. So that's why I applied for a one-person enterprise program, support program from institution. After registering business, I had to complete a business registration form, and I had to study tax-related laws and regulations. But if you go into that support program as a tenant company, you can get support related to all those administrations as well. So let's say you run a company with 2 to 5 people. After hiring some employees, I started to think about different things. First, I had to come up with game plan and roadmap. I had to think about company organization and company rules, welfare-related benefits, and I had to study Labor Act and laws and regulations related to game creation. And making a proper working environment was important. I had to think these kind of issues thoroughly, but I couldn't, so I note with much regret that I had to thoroughly came up with these ideas better. After my company had 2 to 5 employees, I had to choose for another space because Google Campus only provides seats for up to 3 employees. So if you are a company with less than 3 people, you can use Google Space. So only a limited space with 3 are given by Google Campus. You can use the locker at there, so it was comfortable up until we had 3 members. We can use the coffee pantry area. The toilet was clean, so it was good. But as more members joined our company, we had to have a bigger space. So we decided to move to another space. We thought of two different options. First, to apply for government support program and enter as a tenant company to a knowledge industrial center. Or second option was to go to a tenant company as a private, supported by private institutions. In my case, myself and my company members wanted to create games at a relatively quiet environment, so we opted for Knowledge Industrial Center. So we had to pay some expenses because it wasn't a government support program. So that's why we changed our plan and decided to go for a space supported by the government. To share the stories behind it, at first, the space that we were assigned to was a small office area where we can accommodate only 4 members. So there was no window there, and we could make a game at a very quiet environment. And the desk position was like so at the middle of the image, just like the middle of the image. In case of 4-member office, the cost was really low, but there was no window, so that was the negative aspect of it. And we had to make security installment, security deposit, and we had to pay for our internet, and we had to use enterprise internet network, and we've learned that there's a network management center, and the price was different for enterprise, so we had to pay for that as well. Also, we had to install a water purifier. There wasn't enough space for that in our office, so it was difficult to install a water purifier. We had to buy bottled water, so that really incurred cost as well. And there were a lot of miscellaneous expenses such as drawers, desk, chairs, and stationery. There are a lot of knowledge industrial center, and the spaces given by each center is different, and some has very clean toilet, and if you go to the center of the city, then the facility itself is really good, so you need to inspect prior to move in there. And after being a tenant in the Knowledge Industrial Center, we moved to Business Incubator Center. There are a lot of Business Incubator Center here in Busan, and across Korea there are a lot of centers. There is a website called K-Startup. You can Google K-Startup, and most recently there's an announcement for looking for tenants to Seoul Game Content Center. The price is very low. It's nearly for free, so I had to pay monthly rent for the Knowledge Industrial Center, but after moving into Business Incubator Center, the price was free. And the office space, they offer various office space, so I could choose from different office areas. And I got assigned to my office. Business Incubator Center assigned proper office space that fits your company, so you cannot choose which office you are going to use, unlike Business Knowledge Industrial Center. You need to always check for announcements when they recruit for the tenants, and you need to check the requirements and qualifications they look for. After being selected, you can freely use their office space. And the investigation or evaluation periods requires at least 6 months and up until 2 years. After getting reevaluation, they renew your contract or you need to move out after 2-year period. So you need to make some achievements within the 2-year period or you get kicked out of the space.
조건들을 잘 보시고
You need to check for the qualifications, therefore.
이제 뭐 회의실을 저희가
But you can use their meeting room. Before when we used the Knowledge Industrial Center, we only had space for 4 employees. But after moving into Business Incubator Center, we could use their own meeting space and could use the water purifier installed there. And we don't have to worry about fixed costs, such as using the internet, and that was the upside of it.
그때 이제 가장 이제 2명에서 5명 또
And when you have around 2 to 5 or 10 members, another option you can have is working from home. Before the pandemic, remote work was not popular, but after the pandemic, people learned how to do remote work.
당시에 게임을 이제 뭐 재택근무 형태로 게임 만드는 방식이
And remote working while developing a game was an okay option for us.
하드웨어적인 부분들에 대한 비용들이
So office space and other expenses were related to hardware, but if you make your environment based on remote work, the prices you pay is for softwares.
많은 이야기들이 있겠지만은 그 중에
There are a lot of discussions related to remote work, but the things you need to prepare is the Zoom platform or
김이라든지 또는 이제
Metaverse
메타버스
platform. In case of Metaverse,
이제 사용했던 뭐 게더타운을
we use Gather Town.
경우는 이제 어떻게 보면 되게
In case of Gather Town, after you set it up, you can use the chalkboard or you can communicate using chat box. I think it was good.
근데 또 이제 그 공간에
But at the same time, you had to wait until other come, so it was the downside of it. After using
공간을 사용하시다 보면
Metaverse platform and Zoom, you need to meet with others in person, so you can use that study space or TOES and other study cafe area as your hub office. Using a hub office can be your option too when you create a remote work environment. So all these are related to software costs. I worked as a programmer and paid for this software costs when running a remote work environment.
본격적으로 이제 사람이 이제 게임을 만들고
And when you make games and when you employ others based on that game, then you
분위기 회사 분위기가 이제 점점 인원이 더 필요하다는 걸 느끼게
need more employees and you increase the head count and you become somewhat like an official company.
이제 서비스들 공간들이 더 필요하게 됩니다.
When you hit 5 to 10 members in your company, you need to think about service area. If you had less than 5 members, it was like more of a friendly atmosphere. You can buy your own snacks, share with the colleagues and so. But if your employees hit to 5 to 10 people, the expenses increase. So you need to create an office pantry space.
좀 풀고자 하게 되는데 근데 이때 이제 조금
Then
문제가 되는 부분이 이제
there's a problem related to it. As you are in charge or as you are a CEO, you become arrogant because you have many members in your company. So you have your own ideas and your own perspective related to how you're going to make your CEO room.
그러니까 이제 돈을 벌면은
After earning money, your organization chart looks like this, just like a pyramid. You have CEO, team leaders, and employees.
각종 이제 준수해야 될 것들이 존재하게 되고
And there's a lot of laws and regulations you need to abide by.
이제 개발실 이렇게 공간들 나누게 되다 보면
You divide the office space according to what they do, and you invest a lot of money in this stage.
하는 게 데시벨리를 어떻게 넘을 것이냐
And when we create a company, we talk a lot about Death Valley, and many say that you need to get out of that Death Valley curve quickly. And making consumption and making an investment is important in getting out of that death valley. If you jump on the curve, then you need to go up constantly, and then you feel that death valley comes again. So you need to make a proper investment in order to get out of that death valley. If the lifespan of your game gets shorter, then the expenses related to retain your office and employees get higher. So your investment may become obsolete. I've mentioned that I became arrogant, but after hitting the death valley once again, I became very humble. So I realized that death valley comes again and again. And I've learned that that's the life cycle of a startup company. Initially, I divided my office space, one for CEO room and one for employees. And that required 2 times more investment to maintain. What's good about this was that my friends could come to my office and play games together. It was really fun. The CEO room felt like my own space, so I spent a lot of time playing games. After playing games for a lot of time, I realized that I have to brace up for another leap forward. And that's why I searched for another space to move. I searched for global game center. Currently, there are around 10 global game centers in Korea. There were 3 reasons to choose Gyeonggi Global Game Center because the reason why I chose Game Center is that I can utilize the network of game developers there, and I could get a lot of information related to government support program and so. Moving on, my company grew a lot, so we hired a lot of people. We got a lot of support from other people, and we could grow further. And expenses increased, but we stayed at game development center, so the expenses that went into it, expanding the company was relatively low. We tried to make reinvestment, but haste makes waste. So last year was our death valley cycle. So while increasing the head count, we had to burn a lot of investment, and we are currently recovering from that death valley. When you think about the size of your company, another option you can have is buying an office space. If you have 10 to 30 employees, one option you can have is to buy an office space or reinvest the profit that you have into game development again. If you buy an office space, you can have a loan, apply for a loan to establish an R&D center, and after getting a certification as a venture business, you can apply for that loan. So it's a good option that you can have. And if you have your own office space, you can do interior design as you like and use the meeting space as you wish. And you can stably run your company as you have your own property. Before, when we applied for a government support project, we had to go through evaluation and kicked out after 2 years if we don't make any results. But if we have our own office space, we don't have to think about that evaluation. And also, we don't have to pay for real estate agents' commission because that's our own space. And you can create your own game development environment as you wish. And there's another option called co-working space. It's very popular nowadays. That co-working space provides meeting room, conference room, toilet, and lounge area. And you can reserve those spaces according to your schedule. In case of co-working space, there are a lot in Seoul and Gyeonggi area, and many companies are investing in it. And they are mainly located at easy to get to locations. They operate their own lounge bar and they have magnificent views, such as in Crafton Tower, there is a co-working space called Workplex and Work and All. So if you pay if you pay some fee, then you can get into this co-working space. But the downside of this is that you'll get assigned to a limited space, and you need to do an inspection before moving in because they provide different spaces, so you need to check it in advance. In case you use co-working space, they give out stationery, desk, chair, drawer, and so on. They provide disinfection services, and they have parcel service and storing cabinets, so you can use these kind of services freely. And they provide multiple services such as Unity, Office, Photoshop, and other software. And you can get a discount for travel, restaurants, and so on. You can use the lounge bar as you wish. You can drink coffee, tea, or beverages and get some snacks from their snack corner. And they also provide cereal and milk for breakfast. But as mentioned, the space is very limited. But if you want to increase the member of your company, then you can apply for a bigger space at co-working space office, so it's easy to scale up. But the downside is that they offer static IP address, and the fixed cost for that static IP address is something that you need to pay. And as mentioned, the space is very limited, so if you have a lot of office stationery or supplies, then you need to store it in another space. And you need to check for air conditioning as well because different co-working space offer different air conditioning services. If your space is too constrained, then you need to look for another storage service. I introduced you about co-working space, knowledge industrial center, university or government support space, and others. As a game development company, I think the most desirable option is to buy your own space. In case of company with 1 person or 2 to 5 person, 5 to 10 person, you need to take different approach according to your head count. As mentioned, 1-person development company is easy to make a game, but you need to learn more. So when your head count gets increased, you need to do a research on your own. And I hope that you could search for various support programs as well. Thank you for listening.